Hello and welcome everyone to Disability In's exclusive webinar, DEI Findings. My name is Celeste Kiana Aina with Disability In. On today's webinar, you will hear a conversation between Disability In corporate partner peers. Our panelists today are Shani Bird, Director, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Boston Scientific, Tom Frantz, Senior Manager of Accessibility Partnerships and External Communications at Salesforce, Chaz Kellem, Program Manager, Enterprise Equitable Health Institute at Highmark Health, and Annette Underwood, Chief Diversity Officer at Vistra Corp. Our moderator for today's webinar will be Becky Kekula, DEI Director at Disability In. Before I turn it over to our panel, for anyone who cannot see the screen or who has dialed in, I will be running through a PowerPoint slide regarding the webinar housekeeping items. And I'm just going to get that up now. As an attendee, you are in view-only mode, meaning you may watch the presentation and participate in the moderated Q&A. You cannot share audio or video, so please feel free to submit your questions for our panel in the Q&A box anytime during the conversation. They will do their best to address all questions either throughout or the end of the webinar. This webinar, as within all webinars in the Disability In webinar series, is being recorded. You may access all webinar recordings in our corporate partner portal. ASL and live captioning are both being provided during today's webinar. To start viewing the captioning, simply select the CC or closed caption icon in the meeting controls. Feel free to click and drag the closed captioning box to move its position in the meeting window. We will also post a stream text link chat in the box. Our ASL interpreters videos will be spotlighted for the duration of the webinar. Also, feel free to pin the interpreters. If you need any assistance during the webinar, please feel free to reach out to me directly through the Q&A or chat box or email at celeste@disabilityin.org. I will now take down my housekeeping slide and hand it over to you, Becky.
Thank you so much, Celeste, and thank you all so much for being here. I'm really excited for our panel discussion today, and we are going to get to that shortly. I am just going to give you a little bit of background info on the DEI. So first off, I'll introduce myself. My name is Becky Kekula. I'm the Director of the Disability Quality Index at Disability In. I've been here for 5 years now, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a white woman with short brown hair wearing a sparkly sweater. I'm currently in my home office in Plymouth, Massachusetts. So today we're going to talk about the DEI and how exciting it is to participate in the DEI, and a little background on the DEI for those of you who may not be as familiar. And I know DEI gets talked about a lot in today's society. For the purpose of this presentation, DEI is referring to the Disability Equality Index. It's the leading corporate benchmarking tool for disability inclusion. It can help initiate companies into disability inclusive landscape, incorporate practices that facilitate inclusive workplaces, and set goals driven by inclusive values. Data from the DEI can help a company tap into an underutilized and undercapitalized pool of workers with disabilities and progress from accommodation to inclusion to genuine belonging. We saw a 30% increase in DEI respondents in 2022. 415 participated this year. We see this as a signal that disability inclusion is becoming a staple of corporate diversification agendas. We had 111 first-time participants this year. And registration is currently open for the 2023 DEI, and we hope to have even more companies participating. Let's get over 500. Just a little bit of what we found in this year's DEI. It has helped articulate a trajectory of corporate inclusion that can help companies enter the inclusion conversation, incorporate practices that put them on the map, and set goals driven by inclusive values. We saw 3 approaches. We saw foundational practices. They're considered the industry standard. These are measures that have been adopted by the majority of companies that took the DEI, such as 96% of companies now offering flexible work options, 91% encouraging employees to self-identify, and 74% have expenditures with disability-owned businesses. There are emerging trends. These are practices that push comprehensive inclusion forward and are embraced by about half of the companies that took the DEI this year. 60% have company-wide external hiring goals for people with disabilities. 62% have a requirement to ensure digital products are accessible and usable by all individuals with disabilities. And 70% authentically market directly to the disability community by including people with disabilities in their marketing and promotional materials. And lastly, we have new imperatives for success, moving the disability agenda forward from accommodation to inclusion to belonging. These initiatives are embraced by a smaller subset of companies this year. 22% of companies publish a diversity report that includes data on employees who identify as having a disability. 25% say disability inclusion is specified as a written component of diversity within senior executive performance evaluations. 10% of documents that govern nomination of directors on corporate boards specifically mention the consideration of people with disabilities. 6% have someone who openly identifies as having a disability serve on their company's corporate board of directors, and 2% of the companies publicly disclose or report on this information. 30% have a senior executive within the first 2 layers of the CEO who is internally known as being a person with a disability. And 4% of current employees self-identify as having a disability. And this data is from those companies who shared that information with us. That was the median that we found, 4%. And we know that there's a lot more work to do. And for those of you who are interested, we're going to put a link in the chat with the Disability Equality Index report from 2022. We're really excited about how we laid the report out this year and look forward to gathering more information as we enter into the next cycle of the DEI, our 9th year. Now let's get started and talk about those companies who are putting these practices into place. They're not just taking the DEI, they're really implementing plans and building a roadmap with the responses to the DEI. So let's start off with introductions. I'm going to go around and just introduce people by their first name, and then they can take it from there. So we'll start with Annette.
Oh, you're going alphabetically? Is that what it is? Hi, my name is Annette Underwood. I'm really excited to be here, first timer. I am the Chief Diversity Officer at Vistra Corp. We are an energy and utility company. I identify as she, her, hers. I'm a Black female, hair's pulled back today, and I am at our home office in Irving, Texas.
Thank you, Annette. Chaz.
Hello, pleasure to be here. I'm super excited to share. My name is Chaz Kellem. I'm the program manager for the Enterprise Equitable Health Institute at Highmark Health. I use the he, him, his series of pronouns. I'm an African-American male wearing glasses, sort of a striped shirt today, and I'm joining you from our corporate headquarters in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Chaz. Shani.
Oh, hello, everyone. I am Shani Bird. I'm the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I'm a Black woman from Jamaica. You'll hear an accent. I'm in my mid-30s and I have short Black hair. I'm wearing thin Black glasses, a floral dress, and I use she, her pronouns. And I'm based in a town called Acushnet, Massachusetts. Not a lot of people have heard about it. It's a great place. And Boston Scientific, we've done the Disability Equality Index for the past 8 years.
Thank you, Shani. And Tom.
Thanks, Becky. So I'm Tom Frantz, the Senior Manager of Accessibility Partnerships and External Communications at Salesforce. I am an unremarkable middle-aged white male, and the only thing I got good going on is my University of Oklahoma polo right now, Boomer Sooner. I will say that I have ADHD, so I can go unconscious at times and tangent. So if I say or do anything that's not inclusive, please give feedback. It's the only way I'll learn, and I'm trying to get coaching, but nothing has worked in my 40 years of life. But I'm excited to be here. I've been part of the disability and family for probably around 8 years as well. But yeah, excited to share learnings and get more people involved and help Becky hit that 500 mark.
Thank you, Tom. Well, we're excited to have you here, and we're excited to have all of you here. Let's get started in the questions. I'm going to start with Annette again. As a first timer, how much time did it take you to complete the benchmark, and what additional resources did you need to complete it?
Okay, so this was not only our first disability index, this was our first index, period. And so it took us about, well, we planned about 2 months because we knew it was new. We reviewed the questions. We brought in our supplier diversity director, our safety director, and then our Vistra employee resource group chair also worked with the DEI team, and we split it up into sections. And so we used the full 2 months. So, we had checkpoints where we would get together and look and see where we were and what was the outlying questions. And of course, that's when we realized we needed to bring in more people to answer the questions. But that was a good time frame for us. We probably could have used, I think first timers, we should have used every minute from the time the index opened until the time that it was due. And I think next year, we'll plan, even though it'll be easier because we've done it, I think we'll plan more time.
Thank you for that. Chaz, what about you as a long timer?
Yeah, we've been involved here at Highmark Health in the DEI for several years as well. And I really want to encourage everyone to figure out a strategy. Putting a plan in place that has tangible goals to execute, timeframes to lock in will help you execute it. It is easier as you do it year over year, but having a plan in place, a project leader or coordinator, someone that can help steer the ship is important. I like to use the trim tab analogy where the small actions make the entire process easier. So having someone that stays organized, stays coordinated will help you in completing it. And it is about the team that you put together, right? Having a team in various departments throughout your organization that can complete parts or segments will help you to complete it. Being honest, being transparent, and being vulnerable are important parts of the process to have an accurate assessment of yourself. So it's about the process you put in place versus the time. Don't let the length of the DES intimidate you in any way. Don't let the number of months that's required to complete it intimidate you or turn you away. The process is so important and so worth it. So I encourage everyone to put an accurate process in place as they execute it.
Thank you, Chaz. Now for the next question. Shani, what was the benefit in simply completing the benchmark year after year?
There's so much benefit in completing this benchmark, and what it really did was give BSC the foundation to start from way back in 2014. So during that time, we're a highly innovative medical device company, and we had already established a lot of employee resource groups that really covered a broad range of diverse dimensions. But we're really looking to expand these grassroots efforts to include people with disabilities. And so we joined Going for the Goal team, which is now Inclusion Works. And we were one of the founding members of this group. I'm really happy about that. And so with joining this group, we took a holistic approach to disability inclusion. And one requirement of being a member of this particular group was completing the DEI for sure, in addition to disability hiring requirements, establishing an ERG, and also launching a disability awareness campaign. So we did not know where to start. So testing the waters with the DEI really gave us a roadmap for us to follow and also highlight gaps we needed to address. Upon our first try, everyone, we got a big fat 60 on our first try, right? but it's not about the score. It's about ensuring we're focused on improving and building a culture where everyone can feel this inclusive environment. And now, even with a 100 score, the journey still continues. So yes, Becky, there was immense benefit to build the foundation of our efforts in the disability inclusion space.
Thank you. Chaz, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I can't echo enough, Shani. Absolutely well said. And the score is only a part of the journey, right? Whether you get to 100 or you're still moving towards 100, there's always opportunities for growth. So there are two key things that have been benefits. One is the internal group, the commitment from our organization to use people resources to complete the DEI. Now we have people committed to disability inclusion throughout our organization, regardless if it's directly associated with their job or not. They understand the value and the commitment of it. And then two is that the network that we've been able to gather by being involved with Becky in disability and overall, it allows us to strategically fill in our gaps and learn how to do that based upon best practice, common practice, and being creative when there is no practice. So it allows us to utilize areas of improvement to and the network that disability provides in order for us to do that. So, and countless other benefits, but those are two that I wanted to highlight.
Thank you. Tom, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'm like, why do I have to go after everybody? They're so buttoned up and good at this stuff. And I'm always just the like do everything in crisis mode type of person last minute. So I would say for me is that this is like a training exercise. I think that in this space, we're scrappy. And I don't even know why any of us have job descriptions because we have to do everything. And we're always trying to sell, which we shouldn't have to. So I think the DEI, what really helps is it helps like build that foundation, which was a common theme of what everyone says is like, anytime I can get a very standard project that I can also help people learn, which is like one of my strengths. It's just a dream. So I love when the DEI comes around, but I think it's all about everybody who's like, when you're doing the DEI, a lot of these people don't work in accessibility. So it is like the most important thing is like, let me guide you through this. I'm not just giving you this and saying, go figure it out yourself. Let me teach you through this and then you can be an advocate and don't be scared of it. So I mean, yeah, it's pretty exciting time for me, but then it ends and then I have to remember that I'm a marketer, manager, operations person, product person. I don't know what I am each day.
You're everything. Annette, what was the most difficult aspect of completing the benchmark, especially for the first time?
I think the most difficult aspect of completing it the first time is not knowing what I really needed and who I really needed. And so as we begin to go through, responding, we would say, oh, we have to meet with facilities now. Oh, we have to meet with IT. I don't know how many of you have to meet with IT, but that in itself is a challenge. And these are people we probably should have been working with from the beginning because that turned into many projects. When we were talking about customer facing accessibility, that became a mini project. So I would say that was the most difficult, not understanding that my team needed to be larger. We thought we had it buttoned down, but I think to really get, the results you want, you have to include people in at the beginning. So I would always recommend, look at every area of your business that touches your accessibility and your programs and your efforts for DEI and make sure they're included.
Thank you, Annette. Tom, you had previously mentioned in conversation about different models and getting started. What was the most difficult aspect for you, especially as you've participated in the DEI for several years and in different roles?
Yeah, I think that the first time I did it, which was back at Facebook many years ago, it was kind of not deep diving and understanding the questions myself, taking that approach where it's like, here you go, you know this space, kind of figure it out. And it's funny that Annette said IT, because that was one of the hardest parts at first. And so it's like really taking that moment to understand the questions and try to find out, like, who is this team? What are their goals? And so I didn't prepare for that time. And it was tough because then, you know, people don't want to respond back. And it's a very slow moving process, because when you don't understand something and you have your own job, it's easier just to focus on that. And then I thought I got so good at it by the time I left. And then I realized I go to a new company and I have to learn an entire new structure. And it's not just the DEI structure, it's just how people operate. So at Salesforce, it's completely different than at Facebook because they're different products. It's just a different type of workforce. And so I went in guns blazing, like using my old style and realizing that it just didn't work right at all. So it is just making sure that you really figure out, if you're going to lead these things, what's the 80% that you can carry over, share with people, and make a consistent process, and know that you leave that 20% to be more honed in for whether it's your relationship building, whether it's understanding, you know, different working styles and communication. So yeah, I mean, it comes down to people. It really does. And I think the best part about the DEI is I get to make so many new friends in different areas that later on, when I have an issue just personally, I'm like, hey, can you help me out? I'll help you out later. So it ends up being really good in the end.
Thank you. So I did have I'm going to switch it up a little with one of the questions that came in through the chat, and I'll leave this open to whoever feels comfortable answering. But the question is, what do panelist companies do for compliance of the DEI responses? Is there an ongoing checks and balances, or perhaps oversight committee to ensure the areas that you're answering are to the best of your ability and honesty?
I just
Yeah,
want to
I'll
start off. Go ahead, Tom. Go ahead, Tom.
I'll make it quick. I'll say one of the things is, for anybody out there who says anything about the 100 score, if I were you, I'd be scared to get that, because you are now accountable. Because if you get 100, which is just the starting line, that's just saying like, okay, we're committed and we're trying to do things, but doesn't mean that we're great. And then you go to a 90. I mean, I don't think that that's a good thing. So I think it's really bringing up those trends for accountability measures of like, hey, we have to stay on the ball. And this doesn't, I mean, it's the opposite too for somebody like getting a 60, right? Is like, now you're behind the game. So I think the information is there for you to be successful in getting people aligned. But I think that that's the thing, is my favorite part of the DEI and why I end up doing it so quickly is to spend more time in debriefs and learnings, so we have time to get projects started and get things on people's roadmaps. So it is about telling the real story. You get 100, don't ever get a 90. You get a 60, you better step it up and get to a 100.
Our approach has been a lot of trust and trusting the people, right? Trusting the team, giving them the space to be the professionals in their space. I want to acknowledge this. I think this is a great question. One approach that we have taken here at Highmark Health is to mystery shop in components that I can. So testing the technology, using our abilities BRG business resource groups to try some of the technology or visit some of the physical spaces. We can't secret shop or mystery shop every component of the DEI, and that's not what we're here to do. We have to trust the professionals as much as possible, but absolutely, we do our best on occasion to explore some of the components in which we respond to.
I love what has been shared, and what we have done at BSC recently is we do a lot of indexes. So we now have a global service owner model where one person is the overlord of all the indexes. So they keep track of, you know, who we need to reach out to, what are the gaps year to year, and who are the key stakeholders that need to make sure that they review all of the gaps, close the gaps. And then also we document line by line with every answer notes. So yes, we said yes to this. Why? This is the reason, this is the validation, so that anybody who comes into that GSO role year to year has that information, because of course turnover happens. So that's what we've tried to do to keep accountability year to year.
And I would say, so prior to my role here, I was employee relations director. And everything, we took a high level approach. So everything came to us, all accommodation recommendations. We met with facility, anything that had to do with employees, we were a part of. So we already had a pretty tight system as far as accountability and making sure across the board we were consistent from a compliance standpoint. And now, you know, in this role, I just really just incorporate that into kind of the whole broader view of what we're doing in the DEI space. And I think, you know, having that piece down at the beginning helped quite a bit.
Awesome. Thank you all for chiming in on that question. Shani, I'm going to come back to you. How have you used the results of the benchmark? And are there any examples of interesting insights that you can share?
Yes, so, you know, I mentioned that we got 60 on our first go around. So what we really did is we went inward and we really looked at what we needed to improve, but we really just focused on immersing ourselves in the inclusion works community of practice. I cannot discount that enough. It's such an amazing community to be a part of. And we also started increasing our involvement at the Disability In conference, which really helped us to learn more best practices to improve our disability inclusion practices. So some specific examples of how we use the results of this benchmark is we developed an on-demand training module really focused on disability in the hiring process. All managers are required to take this training. We've enhanced supply diversity classifications. We've launched a supply diversity council, improved our language and bidding contracts, enhanced our accommodation process, you name it. We've been able to just ramp up focus across the board and help educate across our company around web accessibility, digital accessibility, which is really coming to the fore right now. So it's really helped elevate the sophistication of how we talk about disability inclusion and how we make sure that our company is a best-in-class company for people of all backgrounds.
Tom, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because things have changed so much during COVID and the whole remote working world. It was just like such a flip on how everything operates. So that was one of the things where, you know, I thought with the DEI, I knew everything, and suddenly everything changed, even the DEI questions. And I think what is awesome is, you know, with the questions, is it really focuses on things like accommodations and internal tools, which now employees, and especially employees with disabilities, and I can tell you with ADHD, communication is my opportunity. And suddenly when I have to rely on tools all the time, and I never realized that I had anything going on that I would need any kind of accommodation or any kind of accessibility stuff. And now you have this guide right there to help you figure all this stuff out. And now teams it doesn't only help, you know, our community, but it also helps everybody. So I think that was a huge learning this last 2 years. And for context, Salesforce acquired Slack, which is now like one of the leading communication programs, especially for companies. And so now it affects our customers, right? And we know that what they say is there's 1 billion people with disabilities. I believe it's so much more, that it's like, okay, we need to start focusing on the future right now. And been so nice that they've jumped in and really taken, and when I say it's Slack, to being like, no, we need to be very inclusive. We want to be the place that people go to be able to communicate with everyone. So it's also a good example of, if you think you know the questions and you get the process down, every year something changes and you have to be ready for those changes, either if it's new questions coming or just how society changes and adjusts your framing of the questions, which goes back to what Shani said, is like documentation. Having those reasons why you put those answers are so helpful. Also, I always think about it as when I left Facebook, did I really do the best job putting things in place as the owner of the DEI with my documentation to set them up for success to continue on as strong? I like to think that I did, but yeah, I mean, I just like love the amount of different aspects of the DEI that you can do, from interpersonal stuff to technology to understanding the world and the changes you're going through. It's just multifaceted. It's not just a tool. It's not just an operational process. It's so much more.
Thank you, Tom. So speaking of owning, I received another question in the chat, and it asks, can you speak to who owns disability inclusion at your organizations and where do they sit? Do you have a senior level accessibility officer? Anyone can answer.
Yeah, I can say so on our team, and it's really hard, is anybody who's out there is we're all different companies in different sectors and do things differently. So not everything's going to apply. So there's not a one size fits all approach. I sit on the legal organization on Office of Accessibility team. So it's kind of easier for us because we're focused on accessibility, and my manager is the VP of the Office of Accessibility. And, you know, it reports right up into our chief of staff, who is reports up to our chief finance officer, Amy Weaver. So we have direct, you know, influence with executives there. And so for me, owning to my support from Catherine, my manager, all the way up to our CFO, that helps out a lot. But yeah, we're unique in the way that we have it set up, that it's fairly easy from the organizational perspective.
From a BSC perspective, we do not have a particular person who owns disability inclusion, but in the past, our D&I team has been set up where people on our team either focus on women's inclusion, they focus on LGBTQ inclusion, etc. And in the past, I focused on disability inclusion, but it's such a big space that we've had to break it up. So right now we have people who support our ERGs, they specialize in that. We have people who support our ERGs strategically. And then we also work with the various functions and divisions and senior leaders that can help us move the needle in a disability inclusion space, be it facilities or accessibility. But right now we don't have an accessibility office or a dedicated person focused on disability inclusion. It's shared.
Yes, with us, it's kind of falls in my space, and then I share the responsibility, of course, with employee relations and their compliance team.
Thank you all for that. Chaz, what does 100 score mean to your company? Does it impact your personal journey as well?
Yeah, so as an individual that identifies as having a disability, the 100 score really demonstrates the organization's commitment that our top executive leadership believes in this. But I want to be very clear that that does not mean perfect. There's a ton of room for opportunity, for growth, for development, and for additional resources to be put in play. So no score is important as the process that you go through to answer the questions and learn about your organization from the in and out. I almost want to echo what Tom mentioned earlier. You know, I'm also not sure 100 score is what I want, because that does symbolize to some people that you don't need to do anything. And that's the opposite, right? We need to make sure that 100 scores, while great, and we should celebrate all of our successes. Even if you get a 60, celebrate your successes. But keep in mind that no matter what your score is, there's always opportunities for improvement and growth. We do take a couple of items that we answer no or not at this time for, and we work as a team throughout the year to figure out that there's a way for us to change that moving forward. We can't be everything to everyone. So taking all of your no or not at this time is not a way to move forward, because you'll never get accomplishments. So we try to take 2 or 3 off of that list, and then we try to create some actions around that to evaluate if that's something we want to change the answer to by the next time we get to the survey, right? We're thoughtful, we're practical, because disability inclusion is shared throughout our company. We have to be mindful of the capacity of our team as well. But this survey, the 100 score, maintains it as a priority. We are thrilled at it. We celebrate it, but our work is still ongoing.
Thank you for that. That's very important to note, and I appreciate you sharing. Tom, what does 100 score mean to your company?
Yeah, like Chaz did 80% of the work for me, so which is great. And I think I called out a lot about, that's just when you've reached to where you're saying, okay, we're committed, like it's the starting line. But I think like my approach to this question is, I think this is a really hard thing for a lot of us who are close to this, because if you think about how the world works, corporate and things like that work differently than our team. Social media and everybody who doesn't know what goes on and the work that we put in every day, doesn't notice anything but this 100 score. And so everyone's out there thinking, oh, this company says they're 100, but they're not good enough. Look at all these mistakes being made. And then, corporate's happy because it's like, oh, we're doing something great. And the people who run, communications, and I'm close to them being an external communications person, is like, they're actually really excited and they get to go do something in their job to roll out like, we did a great job here. So it's just like a lot of misunderstandings, and we're stuck in the middle of this because I think are very clear that 100 is a scary score and you don't want to dip below that once you're there, and it's not as easy as it seems. So I think that what it means to me is like all of this stuff is connecting points. I've made the most friends I have doing the DEI on things like this. Like everybody on this call is my friend. All of you who, took the time to come here and learn more, you're my friends. And, I try to, on social media, try to kind of help guide on, we really do care. It's just a lot of work, and we have a lot of ground to make up, like a decade plus of work. And, we're trying to do that as fast as possible, holding so many jobs that, like I said, we shouldn't even have job descriptions.
Shani, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, one thing that we've been doing recently over the past few years is, yes, we share our 100 score, but we share in detail all the great work that's happening across the globe in disability inclusion, so people can file that away and know that it's not just vanity. It's not just vanity. There's work that's a part of it, and there's more work to do. So yes, a 100 score is not perfection. It's showing us we have more progress, more on the journey.
Thank you. Well, now it's time to give some advice for companies who are looking to participate in the DEI for the first time. As I had mentioned previously, we're going into the 2023 DEI cycle. Registration is open now through January 27th. So how can we encourage everyone to participate in the DEI with advice from all of you? I can start with Annette.
Okay, being a first timer, I can say first time getting a great score was eye-opening. It means that we have been, conscious and aware of our responsibility as a company to our employees who identify as disabled. That was a good feeling. However, I would tell people, don't be afraid. Don't focus on the score. We didn't go into it focusing on the score. We just wanted to see where we are. There is a lot of daylight between who we say we are and who we really are. And you don't really get that information until you do something like the index and see where you really are. And it gives you a place to start. Like they said, even though you get a great score, there were still some things on there that we committed to. So now I have to go back and make sure they're doing those things. There were some things that we're doing, but as we were going through it, we thought we can do better. So your end goal should be, are we improving? Your end goals should be, are we who we really say we are? Finding that out. And you will get something out of the index. Definitely, I would recommend it to anyone. We took a deep breath. I met with our employee resource group, Vistra, and we said, are we going to do this? And everybody was like, let's do it. And everybody took a deep breath and we started it. And as we were going through, people would say, we're better than we thought we were. I mean, it really is an aha for you as you go through the process. So definitely I would recommend it.
Chaz?
Great question. I would like to say, start somewhere, right? Be willing to take that first leap and participate. And in 2023, the timeline is in the chat. Thanks, Becky, for posting that. I was just about to mention that. And there's lots of time. Becky and team is there to support you. You're not in this alone. I'll speak for myself. If I could be of any direct assistance to guide you in your process development, that's what this family is about. And it also sends a signal nationwide for potential employees and recruiting that your organization is one of which is inclusive fully, right? I know what it's like to be the only, and that's not fun. To be part of a system, an organization that's committed to this work and welcomes in truly, authentically means a lot. So that's what this signifies and does. And being part of the process to explore solutions is such a remarkable experience also, and means so much to me personally. And I'm sure that creating change now may not be a pat on the back type of job, but I promise you, long down the road, long term, this work matters. As a disability community overall is no longer a community with our hand out. We're talented, we're educated, we're sophisticated. We bring unique creative ideas to tough problems. And that's the type of people that companies want. And this is a great place to dig your feet, your wheels, your crutches, your cane, your whatever into the ground and really make a change.
Thank you, Chaz. Shani, what about you?
I can't really follow that, but I'll try with some boring tactical things that I've learned over the years. I would just say dive in. The number of questions can be really intimidating at first. Just focus on learning as you go. And I want to amplify Annette's point. Don't pay attention to the other top scoring companies. A company that I worked at before, they were going to try the DEI. Then they saw the competition and they're like, oh my gosh, we can't get there. But I encouraged them to try the process and they got 100 on their first try. It's important to just try. I will also recommend that when you come to set up to start the process, have a working group meeting with all the SMEs in the room. Then you can flag what's complete, what needs to be addressed, or what's a definite no. Having everyone do it in the room at one time was a really good best practice to get a first pass at it. And then I would also say use a cloud-based platform for stakeholders to input their edits. This will help with version control and really help you to manage the mind during the whole process. And then lastly, just as actually, I'm just going to amplify, dive in. There's so much opportunity to become a more inclusive climate for people with disabilities. So it's a really great tool. That's all I'll end.
Thank you. Tom.
Oof. Okay. So I'm going to take off my corporate hat now. And so Tom Frantz, Senior Manager, Accessibility Partnerships, has left the building. Tom, human being, is here right now. And I'm going to tell you what, I don't trust a lot of things because of how society is. And I think there's a lot of marketing in the world, and that's what people fall to. And I worry about, I have 4 children and, watch what they do online all the time. And it's easy for them to believe what's being told to them. So if I'm job hunting, which at the end of the day, the goal is to give people with disabilities jobs. That's the bottom line here. I don't care if a company is signed up to a disability organization, it doesn't mean anything to me. What means something to me is somebody who's actually doing something. And so if there's somebody with a DEI score, that means that there's somebody internally that's actually looked at tactical questions, who have worked with the team. Like, now I'm going to take a chance, if you want me as an employee, to think about your company and look deeper into your company. So it's just like, there's a lot of us. And like, I mean, you see it on social media, like everyone's upset because there needs to be change everywhere and not just this space. And people are tired of the facade. So don't be the company that's out there and just a name on a list. Be a company that does something and don't even care about the score. And if you know you have like another year to go before this is going to happen, the questions are out there. You have people like us on this panel who will meet with you and help guide you. That's what this community is about. There really is no excuse for you not to leave here today and start making plans to do this.
Amen. So we have a question in the chat about Inclusion Works. I know I could speak about it just on a practical term of it being a deep dive, our consulting arm of our organization. But I know that Tom and Shani, coming from companies who are partners within our Inclusion Works program, I'd love to hear from you about kind of your experience from the partner perspective. Someone's asking, can you share more about Inclusion Works, how often the working group meets, and how many from each company attend, et cetera? Because I know it's all about what you put into it is what you get out of it. So we'll start with Shani and then I'll have Tom go.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a number of different working groups in Inclusion Works. And what I really appreciate about them is they are always asking for our perspective, the voice of the customer. What's top of mind for you? What are barriers that you need to address? So I really appreciate that. They even come to our group for ideas on what should be in the disability in conference, so that we can help shape that agenda as well. Then when we meet on either a monthly or quarterly basis, depending on the group that we sign into, we get to learn from other companies and learn best practices. Right now, the hot topic is self-ID. I know disability in, they're like, oh my gosh, somebody asking another self-ID question. But it's so helpful just to really get into the nitty-gritty with other companies in this space. So it's just been a really great partnership. They're very responsive to our issues. If we have a question, they'll do research for us and give us helpful links. It just feels like you have a buddy, another buddy on your D&I team to really help move our strategy forward.
Thank you, Shani. What about you, Tom?
Yeah, it's funny you said buddy, like that was in my mind right away. I was like, if you want to know who ends up being one of my peers, like it's part of my team, it's being part of Inclusion Works, because, you know, Mylene, who's my buddy, is always there for me, not only like reactively when I need something and quick moving, but proactively, like helping me. Like I don't always have the time to look at the trends and things that are coming down or what questions other companies have, and they're coming to me now. So I think having that part is great. And the groups, like the access to these companies who like definitely like really want to push the needle and aren't scared to go in and talk about the conversations of their organizations and learn is important. And you can create your own groups. And we're always looking for someone to be able to come out and be like, we're having this problem, or I'm having this problem. Is anybody else? Can we please get together and support each other and figure out how to change these things? So it really is just like a group of close friends and like access to people who just like get it day to day. And there's no expert in this space. There isn't. I don't care what leader talks on a panel or whatever, there is no expert. So if you get any information from someone else, it is like gold. So, I mean, I can't even like weigh the value of the partnership here. And of course, I've stuck with it for 6-7 years now and push any company that I mean, I have one coming in now from the international space. And I'm like, you need to get in now. And they're like, yes, we do. So get yourself your next friend and we'll all be here for you.
Thank you. So someone asked, as a startup, how do we implement this process from inception? I know just with the DEI and the eligibility, it's for 500 employees or more, but there's nothing that prevents companies from downloading the questions and apply as they see fit. So if you were to give any recommendations to a startup, what would you recommend so they're not biting off more than they can chew?
I think it's important to access the questions, right? To take a glance at the questions in advance to get a sense of the variety of questions that are included. Having your executive leadership or your leadership's commitment, I think is important because it does take time, right? Time from potentially several people throughout your organization. So having that commitment and that buy-in from a leader, and then also having commitment after the results come back in, because again, no question or no index is important. It's always what you do after, right? So not only is it commitment from your leadership to do the actual questions and index, but to have their buy-in, whether it's resources, financial, addition of people, whatever the solutions are, that they're committed to that as well. Downloading the questions in advance is a great place to start. And, you being here, you all that joined us is starting, and that should be acknowledged as well.
Yeah, I would add to that, and that I don't have the answer. I'm not in the startup world anymore, and I'm getting too old with my kids to be able to keep up with everybody in that world. I was a long time ago. But it's knowing that there's companies that are part of this right now and in Disability In who have just went through that phase, who you can really learn from, like what are the challenges? How did you get through this? Or there might be a company that's at your stage that you can team up with. I'm just like, don't do it alone. You don't have to. Like, take the moment, or you utilize us, or of course the Disability In crew, to be like, who can we partner with? Who can help guide us through this? So, I mean, please do use your resources.
Thank you. So another question came in. As a board member of a disability-focused ERG, does anyone have suggestions with how we start the discussion with senior leaders to get traction to move forward with allocating resources to go through the process of the DEI?
I'll jump in here. My boss, Camille Cheng Gilmore, Chief Diversity Officer here, is such a great example of making sure that leaders go through an experience. So the first thing is bring them to the Disability In conference, get them excited, because experiences lead to emotions, which leads to change in behaviors, which hopefully leads to opening pockets and creating more resources to move things forward. So yeah, I would say bring them to Disability In conference, get them on panels, really get them immersed so that they can see it firsthand.
I love that.
I can also say I was in the position of being in like a global leader of our disability related ERG at Facebook. And what I learned is you really need to speak the language of leadership and know that the stories are one half, but how do you relate this to the business? And I mean, how do you impact the bottom line, the stakeholders and all of that? Because I know it's hard to be like, we shouldn't have to do these things. It should just be a given. But at the end of the day, if we don't impact the bottom line or help with that, and the company goes through hard times and layoffs like's going on, then nobody has a job, and people with disabilities lose jobs anyway. So really, like a Salesforce, I came in after the fact, did a great job. I've never seen an employee resource group not only put together a business case that helps with the employees and the customers, but also brings solutions to leadership. I think they're really used to employee resource groups coming with a lot of the more qualitative areas of things, whether it's events or items like that. And I think that where Shani was great is like, the Disability In conference comes with solutions and shows that there's other leaders here. Like, you don't have to, again, do it alone. Like, the leaders want to learn from each other, and then really going, hey, not only am I coming to you with all of this, here's some solutions. And, metrics are tough to come by, but I mean, there's always something you can do to really relate with those leaders and get them on board.
I agree. I was very fortunate that our executive team was so on board and, making the pledge to be involved. But there are we have received great benefits as a business with applicants seeking us out because we now have this, this disability friendly status and just the pride that comes in the workplace. It's not culture, but you're right. There is a business plus to this. And it's not easy. It's not hard to find data that will support your conversation with the executives.
I guess I'll give up one of my secrets, and I shouldn't, but no, I'm kidding. There's a statistic out there, and I think it's by 2030 something, that there's going to be a deficit in the engineering space of something like 40 something million hours in the workforce. So you're not going to have enough people to go out there and make change or run your products or do anything. So you need to be ahead of the game. And where can you close that gap? And where can you find a talent pool that can really kick butt and that's available and that wants to work and that's just ready? It's the disability space. So if you're not on board right now, you're going to miss your opportunity and your product's going to suffer. If not today, definitely tomorrow.
Amen. And on that note, we're getting towards the end of our conversation, but there were a few questions just about practicalities about raising the bar for the DEI and then the DEI working with higher education. Again, we don't currently work with higher education, but you can certainly download the questions as you see fit and apply as you see fit, but we don't have any formal scoring mechanisms for that currently. And we are approaching the 10th anniversary of the DEI. So we will be looking at what it looks like for the future as far as the other question goes, just in raising the bar and next priorities. But really the way that we are informed on how to make improvements for the DEI is getting as many companies as possible engaged and participating so we can learn what companies need to prioritize based on what they're already doing and where they want to go. So I strongly encourage as many companies as possible to participate in the 2023 DEI. And we also have the second phase of our global DEI pilot that you can also participate in. You have an unlimited amount of regions that you can participate on behalf of. And the more information we can get in this coming year will help us inform how to make these tools even stronger. So thank you all for being a part of this journey and partnership. And as we all actually learned at the Disability In conference this past summer, someone from Nike said there's no finish line. So we're all on this journey together and we just got to keep going and keep finding ways to be innovative and more inclusive of people with disabilities. I'm going to pass it back on to Celeste to close us out, but thank you again to all our panelists. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much, Becky.
Thank you.
And thank you to our presenters, Shani, Tom, Chaz, and Annette. And I'm putting up one last PowerPoint slide. I hope everybody can see. And yeah, thank you so much to our ASL interpreters and captioner, and a special thank you to our audience for joining us today. And please visit our Disability In Partner portal for the complete webinar schedule and registration links. And please join us for our next webinar. It's on the screen here, September 21st from 12 to 1 p.m. EST. And thank you so much for joining and have a great rest of the day.